and welcome back. Back. My name is Naya, and you're watching Unguided. ASMR. And in today's video, I have another reading you spooky, scary stories from the Reddit app. Reddit. So, as usual, sit back, relax, and let's get spooky. This first story is by LM Stories 3, and it's called My Family Replaced Me. I want to start off by saying this shouldn't have happened. None of it makes sense. My family means the world to me. Everything I do for them. The mind-numbing autonomy of every hour I spend behind my desk is made better only by the knowledge that when I get home, I will be able to see them. First, there's my lovely wife, Alice. We're high school sweethearts. From the moment I saw her in 10th grade chemistry class, I knew she was the one. Her radiant demeanor, her witty intelligence, really everything. But she's just one member of our family. There's also Brandon and Sarah, our two beautiful children. Brandon is the firstborn. Alice had tried so long for a child that it seemed like a miracle when one actually came. After he was born, I couldn't take my eyes off of him, and the two of us share a special bond. For example, we like to have boys' nights, where we watch old action flicks. Those are the best. Sarah came later. I always wanted Alice to have a girl, so when the news came about Sarah, I was overwhelmed with joy. She's still young, 3, so I've had 5 more years to get to know Brandon. But every time I watch Alice rub a big crayon across a sheet of paper or dance along to an old Disney song, I feel a warmth unlike anything else. This little girl is going to see the world someday, and I'm going to be there to see it with her. 3 days ago, I finished up work 15 minutes late. I was already peeved about the little amount of time I got to spend with my family, so losing an extra 15 minutes was a big deal. I had also been planning to surprise Alice with a nice dinner. She had been so stressed from balancing work with having to watch the children, and I wanted to make her one of her favorites, my famous chicken parmesan. But I needed to get home fast to get it done at a reasonable hour. I grabbed my coat and a computer bag and scurried out the door. The forecast had predicted heavy snow, but it was truly a blizzard outside. By the time I got home, it was 6 o'clock, 25 minutes later than I usually arrive. I haphazardly pulled into the driveway in front of the garage door. Before I had even stopped, I pressed the plastic button above the driver's seat and waited a couple of seconds for the garage door to open. But it soon became clear that the press hadn't registered. I pressed again. Nothing. Click, 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 click. I pushed the button repeatedly to no results. Damn thing must be out of batteries, I concluded. I burst open the car door and ran to the garage's keypad. I tried the code 6552. When I pressed the enter button, I awaited the loud commotion of the door opening. Instead, I saw the button flash 3 times and heard nothing but silence. It had been the wrong code. I took off my thick gloves I had been wearing to shield my hands from the cold and tried again. 6552, enter. The button flashed 3 more times. After 2 more attempts of pressing the rubber buttons with my gradually numbing fingers, I finally realized that there had been no mistake on my part. The code actually was different. Did Alice change it without telling me? I wondered. That would have been bizarre, but not out of the question. Ever since Brandon had told her that he thought he saw someone outside his window, she had been concerned about our house's security measures. I stepped back from the garage door and headed covered stone path to the front entrance. Coldness diffused into my far from rugged leather shoes with each step I took. Upon reaching the door, I took my keys from my coat pocket and tried to unlock it. The key went in but refused to turn. I jiggled it furiously, then removed it from the lock. Could she have changed the locks too? I wondered. It seemed implausible, so why the hell are they different? Knowing I wouldn't be able to get in on my own, I rang the doorbell and waited for Alice to let me in. I had been so overwhelmed with the garage door and lock that I had failed to notice a striking peculiarity about the windows that stood adjacent to the door. They were dark. If Alice and the kids were home, they surely had to be, or so I had assumed. There would have been no reason for them to have the main floor light out. As I had done with the garage door button, the keypad, and the key, I tried the doorbell several times. With each ring, I became more certain of what was happening. Alex had taken the kids somewhere. Why though? And why the new locks? And the new garage door key? Is something wrong? I was beginning to worry. We hadn't fought about anything in months, and even that could have been dismissed as mere bickering. Also, the kids didn't have any appointments today. Granted, she tends to know more about that than I do. There's no reason for her not to be home. I continued to worry about what could possibly explain her absence. Resigned to wait until Alice came home with the kids, I sat down on the front porch's rocking chair where I waited for quite some time. Even after putting my gloves back on, my hands were starting to numb. Fortunately, the thick parka adorning my torso was able to keep the rest of my body warm, with the noticeable exception of my nose. My sniffles, to reduce the stream of mucus flowing out, gave the impression I was crying. Maybe I was. After about 30 minutes, I saw Alice's car approach from down the street and turn into the driveway. The snow flurry prevented me from making out the car's passengers, and I assumed it had the same effect on their visibility of me. My stomach sank once more with the eerie feeling that something had happened to her and the kids, but it dissolved when I saw them exit the car. I couldn't make out their faces, but their silhouettes against the snowy white backdrop were unmistakable. Along with Alice and the kids, a man had gotten out of the car. My thoughts immediately jumped back to the idea that somebody was doing something to harm them, but I soon came to a more rational conclusion. Her brother must have made a surprise visit. Andrew was talking about stopping by sometime. I tried to figure out why they had left. He must have taken them for some food or a movie, but school ended too recently for a movie. If that son of a bitch spoiled their appetite before my chicken parmesan, or maybe they let them out early because of the weather. Of course, I realized I could just ask them where they had gone, so I started towards the driveway to talk to them. The snow had picked up in my waiting, and the path had been covered with at least another inch of snow since I had first walked to the porch. My formal shoes were not equipped to handle this kind of weather. I tried to align each footstep with one I had previously made to prevent water damage, but this drastically slowed down my trek. By the time I had arrived, they were inside with the garage closed. So after my first meticulous journey, I had to return to the porch in an equally meticulous one. I eventually made it and pressed the doorbell next to the now fully lit window. I soon heard footsteps, followed by the turn of the deadbolt and the creaking of the door opening. There was a man. "Hello," he asked. I couldn't respond. It was the man from the car, of that I was certain, but it was not Alice's brother. The man in front of me was someone I had never seen before, but he looked just like, well, me. We were roughly the same height. We both had similarly short brown hair. Our eyes were the same light shade of green. Even his bone structure seemed to bear an uncanny resemblance to mine. But for how similar he looked, many subtle differences, the size of his lips, the shape of his eyebrows, the pointiness of his nose, were enough to make him a very noticeably different person. He stared at me As all of this went through my head, after a few seconds without a response from me, he followed up. Do you need anything? We have blankets, hot cocoa. If you need a break from the cold, we can help. Is this man really offering me my own house for shelter? I thought fiercely. He must think I'm homeless, and here he is standing in my house. How ironic. Despite my wish to scream in his face, I once again was unable to procure a response. It was like I had gone mute. Sorry, man, we can't help you if you don't talk. He closed the door, but I could still hear voices coming from inside. I stared through the window. Who was that? One of the voices asked. It was Alice. Just a solicitor, I think. He didn't say a single word, the man responded. Alice let out a noise that seemed to indicate she found his description puzzling, but soon after moved on. I looked for any signs that his man was holding my family hostage or that they were in danger, but there was nothing. She didn't seem to be under any stress or pressure, so what the hell is going on, I wondered. But just as I was thinking that, the strange man turned back towards the door. His eyes locked onto mine and stayed there for several seconds. His pursed lips made his face seem sympathetic but determined. For a second, I even thought he looked like a nice guy. But just as he started to turn away, for only a split second as our eyes stayed locked, I saw his lips curve into a sly, undoubtedly malicious grin. I stood staring through the window for some time. Though not pressed against it, I was positioned a few feet away, allowing me to adjust my point of view of the house with only a slight lean to either side. Neither Alice nor the kids had noticed me, but the unknown man certainly knew I was still there. Every now and then he would peer back at me, the grin still positioned deviously across his face. We would lock eyes for just a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity of staring into a void. The phoniness of the smile on his face was amplified tenfold by the hollowness in his eyes. I couldn't tell what his intentions were, but I wanted him away from my wife and away from my kids. I stayed on the porch for at least another 45 minutes. I had forgotten about the coldness of the immense snowfall. All of my attention was on the unknown man. One moment I saw him playing with Brandon. They were talking about something, probably how his school day was. I'm the one who's supposed to ask about his school day. A few minutes later, he was holding Sarah in his arms. My Sarah. She was laughing and smiling. The man was grinning. I don't know why I did it. I think my brain turned off and my body went onto autopilot. But when I saw the white wooden slab swing open, I realized I was folding my fist out in front of me. I had knocked on the door. Alice let out a yelp when she opened it. Perhaps she was unprepared to witness how depraved I looked. Shirley waiting outside in an aggressive snowstorm gave me a withered look. Nevertheless, her shocked expression passed quickly and turned into sympathy, which was possibly even worse. It seemed the man had been alerted by Alice's short exclamation, as he had quickly run over to join her in greeting me. Knowing I was being scrutinized by the stranger, I suddenly became very aware of how I looked. I was embarrassed that this man found me like this at my own house. Neither Alice nor I had said anything since her short scream, but the silence was broken by the unknown man. "Oh," he exclaimed. Clearly Alice wasn't the only one startled by my appearance. He turned to her and started talking. "This is the guy who came by an hour ago. He was selling something, I think." Alice turned away from him and at me. "Do you need something?" she asked. Do I need something? I wanted to yell. I need you to stop this act and tell me what the hell is going on. But I couldn't blow a fuse like that in front of the stranger. He had already seen enough of me that I didn't want him to see. "Alice," I started. "Can I come in?" I hadn't talked in the previous 2 hours, so finally trying to let out words really showed just how numb my lips were. My speech was also overlaid with heavy shivering. The stranger turned towards Alice. "Do you know this man?" he asked. I don't know. I feel like I should," she said. I stared at her. My eyes were wide and I was confident I looked like a dog begging for dinner's leftover table scraps. She stared at me than a confused expression. "Stop this, Alice," I demanded, suddenly regaining a bit of energy. She continued to stare at me, all confused. "Stop pretending like you don't remember me and tell me what the hell is going on." The stranger had dropped any smiling facade he had once had. Instead, he looked as if he wanted to beat me up. He took a step in my direction but was quickly halted by Alice. "Wait," she had said in a quiet but assertive voice. I could see deep concentration on her face. "Do I remember you?" Though addressed only to herself, Alice posed this question aloud. Following a couple of seconds of silence, Alice's puzzlement was replaced with recognition. "Gary McBrien," she asked in the kind of tone that was more, "I can't believe it's you," than any actual question. I expected her to finally acknowledge me, but this was far from how I thought she would do it. Instead of just becoming herself, she had seemed to drop one act for another. "Gary McBrien," the man asked. He showed some clear apprehension. "He's just an old friend from high school," Alex told the stranger in a scolding voice. "An old friend from high school," I wondered. This had to be another trick. She must have been pulling my leg. "We've been married for 10 years, and I'm a friend from high school," she turned. And I'm a friend from high school. She turned back to me and carried on. "Oh, Gary, it's so good to see you." A new thought soon came to me. What if she was doing this out of necessity? What if this stranger, this empty man, was somehow putting her in danger? There was no explanation that better accounted for what she was doing to me. And if this was the case, I would have to play along. "Alice, it's nice to see you too. What a coincidence that I came to your house in my hour of need." I immediately regretted my choice of words. Sure, come on in," Alice replied, slightly laughing. "Hank was just starting dinner." "Hank, so that's his name. If you need to take a shower, go ahead. If you need anything to eat, please help yourself." "A shower would be wonderful," I told her. She showed me to my own guest bathroom, and I could tell Hank was very uncomfortable with the whole situation. Rightly so, asshole, I thought as I saw him watching us. I wanted to take the opportunity to ask Alice some questions, but Hank refused to leave us alone. The two of them left me in the bathroom, where I began to undress, then entered the shower. As I stood under the flow of warmth, I listened to a conversation occurring outside the bathroom door. It was muffled by both the stream of water and the wall, so I could make out only snippets. It sounded like Hank wanted me to leave. He thought it was creepy that I waited outside my own house to be let in. Alice tried to assure him that I had been a good friend, but he refused to have any of it. God, I hate that man. I didn't want to leave the shower, but I also wanted to get back to Alice, and I especially wanted to see the kids and make sure they were all right. I stepped out, put on an old pair of clothes, and returned to the kitchen, where I found Alice and Hank. Hank still seemed distrustful, but I tried to ignore it. "So," Alice began, "how's life been since Jefferson High?" "Oh, it's been all right, mainly just work. How about you?" I filled the sentence with stressed pauses, hoping they would clue her into covertly sharing any information with me. The pauses had no real meaning, but I figured it was worth a shot. Her hesitation before answering indicated she had noticed the peculiarity of my speech, but was unsure about what to think of it. "Great. Hank and I have 2 wonderful children. Would you like to meet them?" "No," Hank forcefully interjected. Alice glared at him and became defensive. "I just don't think he just came from the streets. The kids don't need to see him." I was glaring at him too. Who did this man think he was? First, he changed all the locks to my house. Then he brainwashes my wife. A hypothesis I was beginning to see as the most probable. And now he tells me I can't see my own kids. The only thing stopping me from reaching out and choking him to death was the certainty that he would do something bad to my family in return. "I guess you can't see them then. Can I at least tell him about them, Hank?" Hank rolled his eyes. "I'll take that as a yes," Alice continued. "Brandon's 8 and way into soccer. Alice is 3. She's a big dancer. What about you? You have any children? She asked. I paused. How does she want me to respond to this? I started. Yes, I have, and then I stopped. My eyes had been wandering around my house from item to item, plants, books, decorations, and things I had seen a million times. Where had I stopped though? Was on a framed picture. It was one of my favorite photos of the family. We were on a park bench. Brandon was in my lap and Sarah was in Alice's. Now, however, I was not in the picture. Where I had always sat, Hank was sitting with Brandon in his arms. If it wasn't enough for Hank to try to manipulate everything in the present, he was trying to erase all memories of me from the past too. I was aching from the restraint I forced myself to demonstrate towards him. No, I continued, hoping she wouldn't pay any mind to my obvious contradiction. No children. That's too bad. Say, Hank, when do you think dinner's going to be ready? In about 15 minutes. She turned back to me. You need to try his chicken parmesan. It's the best I've ever had. Of all the things that Alice said during this delusional period, this one probably hurt the most. She had always said that my chicken parmesan was the best. We waited another 5 or so minutes in relative silence. Every now and then, Alice would ask a question about my life, to which I would respond with a 1 or 2 word answer. This proved unsustainable for starting a conversation, so she quickly gave up. I was pretty hungry to the point where I was even considering eating Hank's chicken parmesan. I was still trying to figure out when, if ever, this prank or manipulation or whatever this thing was would end. I thought it never would, but this idea was put to rest when the sound of small, light feet began to patter down the staircase. The footsteps were accompanied by a high, raspy boy's voice, Brandon's voice. Mom, it was asking. Hank, Alice, and I all turned in the direction of the voice. Mom, it asked again. Yes, Brandon. Alice and I turned at the same time. Hank turned to me with a cold look, and I could hear Brandon's pace slow down and footsteps become lighter. Mom, Brandon asked again, this time sounding much more cautious. But he stopped before finishing his thoughts. Brandon had gotten low enough on the staircase to form a clear line of sight between us. He was staring at us, eyes wide in a terrified look. His mouth was open slightly, and his bottom lip was so trembling as it pulled back into his mouth. So is Brandon in on this too, I wondered, or does he know something truly terrible about Hank? It turned out that the utter horror stretched across his face was no act. He began to hyperventilate. I stood up from my chair and started running towards him. What did he do to you? I demanded. He was almost in my arms. I almost knew what all of this was about, and my boy was almost safe. Get away from him, Hank screamed, but it didn't affect me in the slightest. Brandon was only a foot or so away from me, but just before he was safe in my arms, he turned around and ran straight up the stairs. Brandon, I bellowed as I started to climb, but Hank had followed me, and before I fully understood what was happening, I was being pinned down to the staircase. Go check on Brandon, Hank yelled towards Alice. I'll keep this asshole down here. Alice looked like she wanted to protest Hank's aggressive technique, but it seemed she realized this would have been futile. She stepped over us and followed Brandon upstairs. We listened to her call his name. Our faces were no more than 2 feet apart. He was wearing an expression of pure hatred, as was I. Despite this, though, neither of us made a sound. We both wanted to hear what Brandon was going to say. Alice had stopped calling his name, so we both knew he had been found. After just seconds of dead silence, Brandon's raspy voice started shakily. That's him. That's the guy who watches me through the windows. I saw Hank wind his arm back and bring his fist down into my face. The next thing I remember is waking up in a jail cell. A guard got me and escorted me into an interrogation room. A cop joined us and started to ask me questions. They were obvious ones like, how do you know Alice? But the police officer did not believe a single word I said. I kept insisting she was my wife, but he wouldn't listen listen to me. What did you do about the dickwad, Hank? I asked him. The cop quietly observed me for a moment as he tried to craft his response. What do you think we should have done to him? He asked. He was stalking my son. He's the one who should be here, not me. The cop once again paused before answering. Mr. McBrien, do you know what these are? He handed me 3 objects. One was a relatively new 7-Eleven Slurpee cup. Another was part of a wrinkled Lay's bag. And the last was a small but long sheet of paper, an old receipt. The receipt was browning and withered, but I could still make out what it said. The date at the bottom read 1/2/14, 8 years ago. You recognize that number? He asked, pointing at the 4 digits listed below payment. I did, but I didn't say anything. The officer pulled out a small rectangular piece of plastic and handed it to me. It was my credit card, as indicated by the name Gary McBrien, written across it in a bold font. Though I knew where he wanted me to look, I let him point at the 16-digit number above my name. The last 4 numbers were the same as those found on the receipt. Those objects the officer started were found outside Hank and Alice's Dotson's house. Do you have any explanation as to how they showed up there? I could have been doing lawn work or... Don't bullshit me, the cop interjected in a cross but calm voice. Be honest. I don't know. The cop kept asking me questions for a while longer, but when he decided that he wasn't going to get anything out of me, I was sent back to my cell. There is no way out of this for me. I know that now. I have no idea who Hank is or how he was able to manipulate so many people and things, but I hope that someday he gets what he deserves. I am devastated by the knowledge that I will probably never see my children again. I said earlier that they meant the world to me and that they were the main thing that kept me going, and that is still true now. While I may have never been able to see Brandon or Sarah again, I can still live with all the amazing memories I have of them, watching them laugh, watching them cry, watching them grow. How much time we have left? Okay, I'm gonna turn my camera off and come right back. Whew, child. Okay, let's get into this story. I don't even know where to begin. Like, there was just so much going on here. Okay, quick theory of what I think is going on here. 2 things. Either Hank and Alice are telling the truth and that they are really a family, and that darn it, what's his name? Wait, sorry guys, give me a second. Okay, so Gary McBrien may be crazy, maybe like he escaped the mental ward. I don't like how I started this. Whoo, child. Okay, whoo, child. This is a lot, okay? There's a lot going on in this story. 2 things that I think may be going on here, and one of my theories is that Gary McBrien, the one that is claiming that this is his family, it may very much be his family, but this guy, Hank, maybe has been like stalking them for years. I don't know how he found this family. This is what I'm assuming. Maybe he found this family and realized that he looked like Gary, which is, I think, maybe the real husband, and was like, I don't know, maybe he's psychotic and maybe he wanted what Gary had and noticed that he looked just like him. Or what if like this is like his long lost twin brother or a brother or something, because it is a bit odd that they look just alike. But anyways, where am I going with this? There's a great chance that Hank, while Gary is at work all day, because he said at the beginning that he doesn't get to see his family much, what if like, while Gary is at work, Hank somehow found his way into the picture, and while Gary was at work, you know, what if Hank popped up on the doorstep one day, was like, hey honey, I'm home from work early, and that's like how he was spending time with his family and was able to fool them into thinking that he was really Gary, but at the same time his name is Hank and his name is Gary. So like, would the wife not notice that the names are different? Or maybe like the guy somebody said, maybe like Gary said, he brainwashed Alice and Brandon and Sarah into thinking that, I don't know, or maybe he said that he's changing his name to Hank. Either way, this is crazy. This is really crazy. Also, there's no way I'm standing outside of my house for 2 hours in no blizzard while some dude is playing house with my family. But anyways, it is very possible that Gary could be a mental patient because, like, first off, who's standing outside in the cold for 2 whole hours in a blizzard? But not only that, the cops were telling him, like, which this part kind of threw me off. I don't really know what happened here, but when the cops took him in for interrogation and they showed the receipts and the cup and the, what else was it? Dang. Okay, it was the cup, the receipt. It was in a bag of chips, but they said he bought that 8 years ago, which makes me wonder, 8 years ago is when Brandon was born, so has he been crazy for 8 years? Or has Hank been stalking them for 8 years? Or like somebody is not being truthful and Hank a little sus, okay? The way Hank was just like grinning at him out through the window. Hank knows something's going on, and for Hank to be afraid for Brandon to see him is because Hank knows that Brandon knows something and he didn't want Brandon to out him out. It's like I said, there's a lot going on here. I know I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but yeah, Hank is definitely suspect, and somebody's either crazy and somebody's telling the truth. Either way, Hank may just very much be a serial killer and just waiting to make his move. I don't know. I wish the story wouldn't have ended like that. I really wanted to know, like, what happened. Like, this story is really good. It's really leaving me, like, my mind to wonder and come up with, like, my own conclusion. But, like, there's no way I'm about to settle on never seeing my family ever again. Like, no, we gonna find a way to figure out what is happening. But yeah, very weird. Could very much be his twin brother or something, very much so, that's trying to take over his life. But yeah, that is a really good story. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. This story is actually like a really long one. Typically I do kind of short stories, but I said why not? Maybe somebody would, or someone or people will appreciate longer stories. This next story is by Dark Hero XX, and it's called I Played a Horror Game. I've been a streamer for a little over a year, or rather, I was a streamer up until last night. I only had 40 subscribers, but I tried really hard to make something out of my channel. I tried all sorts of videos from DIYs to mukbangs, but nothing really stuck. My videos would have about 10 or maybe 20 views on a good day, but I wanted more. I watched other streamers trying to figure out what I was doing wrong, but no matter what I did, my views wouldn't get any higher. So I got on Twitter and made a post asking my followers what kind of videos that I should make. Most of them just liked the post, a few retweeted, but none of them replied. One evening I was in bed scrolling through and groaning over what to do next when I got a message from someone. Their handle was Phobos, and all they sent was, I have a suggestion. I didn't recall having a follower by that name, so I decided to look at their profile. I clicked on their page, but it was completely blank. No post, retweets, followers, nothing at all. I was thinking that it was some sort of bot or something, so I ignored their message. I dropped my phone to my side, and as soon as it hit the bed, a notification rang. I looked at my phone again to see another message from Phobos. I have a suggestion for more views. I decided to just shrug it off and humor them for a bit. I replied with, oh, awesome, thanks for supporting my channel. What did you have in mind? What they sent me next was a link, a string of letters and numbers highlighted in blue. I know this wasn't the best decision, but I was so damn curious I couldn't resist clicking on that link. That's where you messed up. I was brought to a site that was completely black. For a second, I thought my phone had turned off. Slowly, red letters started to appear on my screen, and that formed the words phobia, along with an image of a beating actually spurting out blood. More text came on the screen. Fear-inducing experiences. It wasn't the catchiest tagline, so I didn't think anything of it when I pressed on the heart. I felt a light vibration underneath my thumb, then the window simply closed. I went back to my inbox to find that Phobos and his messages were gone. I was sure that I must have clicked on a virus or something, so I spent some time looking up ways to clean my phone. Thankfully, there seemed to be nothing wrong. I sat in my room in silence, trying to figure out what to do next when my computer's monitor turned on. I thought my computer was turned off, so I stepped over towards my desk to shut everything down. That's when I saw an icon in the center of my screen, a small icon of a red heart. I'm not sure how the icon even got there, but sure enough, it was the same heart that was from the link. I'm not much of a gamer. I play things pretty casually, and horror games are something I just never got into. I know a lot of streamers record themselves playing and reacting to horror games, so I thought that I should suck it up and start doing it too. I had everything set up for a live stream, and as I started it, I waited for a moment until I had a few viewers at least. About 10 minutes had passed with 0 viewers. I was about to stop the stream altogether, but I thought I should at least start the game and see what happens. I clicked on the icon and the screen blacked out. Slowly the word start in a bold red font came into view. I took a deep breath and mentally prepared myself to get scared. I looked to see that my stream had gotten 3 more views. I played up my nervousness a bit, hoping to entertain whoever was watching, talking about the channel a bit and telling them how much I hate being scared. No comments yet. I suppose they were feeling me out. After a bit more of my one-sided conversation, I clicked the start button. The game was in first-person perspective. I was in a dark square room surrounded by stone walls, each with a torch on its surface. My characters slowly picked themselves up from the floor, and when I was upright, I was able to move forward. I had my headphones on, and there wasn't any music, no trace of sound effects, just absolute silence. I looked around to see no doors or openings, just 4 walls and 4 torches. What kind of game is this? I said to myself. I glanced over to see that I now had 15 viewers. I tried to contain my excitement as the viewer count slowly rose. I thought maybe this wasn't a bad idea after all. I set my focus back onto the game and continued to look around for some kind of objective. I moved my cursor over one of the torches and a prompt appeared on the screen that said, "Kill the light." I clicked the torch and a satisfying hiss filled my ears as the flames went out. I went to 2 more of the torches and did the same to them, my screen beginning to dim as each flame went out. I stood in front of the last bit of light that I had from the torch in front of me. I looked at my views to see that I had over 50 people watching me. I couldn't help but grin a bit as I acted afraid for the viewers as I glided my cursor over the final dim flame and a prompt appeared. Are they watching? Did it really say that? I quickly moved back to the flame and the prompt, "Kill the light," appeared. I thought it was just my imagination, so I continued to play through as normal. I extinguished the last light and my screen went black. I sat there while pressing at the movement keys, hoping that the game didn't crash when I heard something through my headphones. The noise sounded like it was right next to me. A wet squish as if something was moving through mud. I removed my headphones to look around my bedroom. Nothing was out of the ordinary, just a dark room lit by my monitor. The moment I placed the headphones, the noise continued, even louder than before. I thought that the game was bugged somehow. I wasn't sure if I was moving at all in this darkness, and that noise was making my ears ache. I apologized to my viewers and muted the game's audio. I let out a sigh of relief from not being able to hear that damn squishing noise until I heard something else. I was sure that I was home alone. I was sure that my bedroom door was locked, and I was absolutely sure that the game was muted. But why? Why was I hearing shallow breaths coming from behind me? I took off my headphones and turned around, but was there, but the breathing continued in my ears. I couldn't feel it behind me, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand. Even after I took off my headphones, I could hear the breathing right behind me. I could feel the short burst of air hitting the back of my neck. I quickly closed out the game and stopped the stream. I spent the next hour curled up underneath the blankets on my bed. I spent that time with my hands on my neck, with my breathing nearly held, to listen out for whatever was behind me. I jumped at the sudden noise of my phone vibrating on my desk. I had a moment of clarity as I thought about how childish I was acting over playing some broken game. I lifted my sheets to find myself in the darkness of my room, of course. I slowly stepped over towards the direction of my desk and found my chair. I turned it to take a seat and repositioned myself in front of my monitor. I felt for my phone, and after a moment of fumbling around, I was finally able to find it. I turned it on, and the bright light from the screen caused me to wince. I looked at my phone to see I had a private message from Phobos. I opened the message to find another link with a message: "They're still watching." I clicked on the link, and it was a full video of my playthrough of that game. I was surprised to see that it was posted just an hour ago, right after I had ended my stream, and it was already at a couple of thousand views. I wasn't sure if I should have felt angry or what, but as I scrolled back up to the video, I watched an absolute horror as I saw an outline of a head appear from right behind my chair. I just sat there and watched as the room got darker from me taking out the torches. The face would pick itself up, revealing a thin shape of a body, and move closer to my head. I paused the video right before I took out the last light, and I was able to see its face had nothing but a mouth. The rest of it exposed flesh was covered with small eyes. Its naked thin body, its pencil-like arms, everything was covered in lidless eyes. With the video paused, I could see that each eye was pointed towards me. I couldn't help but stare at the eyes, and though the video was paused, I could feel them staring at me. I could hear each eye with their wet, squishing movement go towards me. Once again, I could feel the breath hitting the back of my neck. I slowly turned in my seat, and I was met face to face with whatever that thing was. Each eye wrinkled to look at me, and its mouth was open to reveal a black void that released that damn shallow breathing. I was absolutely frozen in place as it lifted its hands and grabbed my face. I felt the eyes move around on my cheeks. The feeling of the wet and cold orbs on my skin made me want to throw up. Despite the bile rising from my gut, nothing came out of my mouth, not even a scream, as it moved its face closer and closer to mine. I couldn't let out a shriek, but my body knew the fear as it shook uncontrollably. I was helpless in the grasp of this thing. I didn't want to look at it anymore, or rather, I didn't want it to look at me anymore. I squeezed my eyes shut. Now its breath was hitting right in my face, with the eyes on its eyes still moving against my cheeks. I tried to turn my head away, but it was so strong my neck couldn't budge. I heard something, a distorted, deep voice that filled my ears that said, "I'll always be watching." Then I felt it release my head, and when I opened my eyes, it was gone. I dashed to my bedroom door, and sure enough, it was still locked. I looked back onto the phone and the video, the link, the message, it was gone. I went on my computer and scoured the internet for any trace of the game, anything, but there was nothing. I went through my streams, and God, there was nothing at all. I turned on all the lights in my apartment. I covered myself in my blankets, and I cowered in the corner of my room. It said that it was watching me, and I could still feel its eyes on me. I went online and deleted all my videos. I don't want it to look at me. I don't want its eyes on me ever again. I didn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I was surrounded in darkness, and I could hear the eyes move. I could hear its breathing behind me. Hours had passed until morning finally came. It wasn't a nightmare. I don't know what happened. I thought I had gone crazy until I got a text message from an unknown number asking me if I wanted more views. Now I'm here, still so afraid, and I don't want anything to look at me ever again. hitting up your phone, hitting up your social medias. Like, that is so creepy. First off, let's just get into how this man clicked on a link that was sent to him by somebody he did not know. Everybody knows the golden rule of you do not, and if you don't know, you need to listen. You do not click links that are sent from either unknown numbers, unknown people. If you don't know them and you don't trust them, do not click the link, because okay, something like this, something like this may happen. Not like no creepy slim figure with eyeballs covering his body, not that type of thing, but people legit will send viruses and hack your phones, hack your computers, and live stream you or whatever. So don't click links, guys. Don't click links that you don't trust, or emails. Don't even open them. But anyways, so when this was all going on, this man had the audacity, after everything, to sit in his dark apartment before he cut the lights on, and just in the corner. My first instinct would be turn every light every candle in case the lights go off, turn my flashlight on. There would be so much light, you would think it was daytime in that apartment, okay? Like, that is so creepy. And then clearly whoever is toying with him has a lot of access to him, because even after all of this has happened, he's getting text messages. And then for him to re-upload, the guy, the one that's texting him or whatever, to re-upload the video onto social media, it makes me wonder, did he record the live stream and re-upload it, or is the live stream still going on, and did the guy think he ended it, but the guy that's tormenting him really is live casting him? I don't know. And then it was also kind of crazy, like, so the viewers that are now viewing him, you know how he was like, first it was 3, then it was 15, then it was 50. Were those real people that were intrigued by him, or was that Phobos, whatever the hell his name is, Phobos? Was it him and his 50 viewers, or was it him and 50 accounts viewing him, hyping him up? I don't know. But let's get into how they describe this monster. Can you imagine if your eyeballs had eyeballs? If your arms had eyeballs, lidless eyeballs, so they don't blink, they just look at you like, ew. And then he said it felt like wet, what do you say, wet orbs touching you. That's just gross. Ew. What else did he say about the thing? Like, that was just totally just mind-blowing. He had said something, the part where he said he heard the noise through the headphones of like wet mud. I'm guessing that was the sound of the eyeball squishing. I don't know, but like, ain't no way you live by yourself and you hear something through your headphones that you know you don't hear in the headphones, and you just go about your business. No way. At that point, it's just survival of the fittest, because anyways, I really enjoyed this story too. What was I about to say? Yeah, he need to let all social media and streaming go. Just let it go, man. Let it go. And go with your gut. If you know you don't like horror games, don't feel pressure to do horror games. If that's not your thing, it's not your thing. You know, peer pressure is probably what got him into this in the first place. Doing things you don't even want to do. That's a life lesson right there. Anyways, I'm going too deep with this. I really hope you guys enjoyed this story. And yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed these stories in this video of me reading scary stories from the Reddit app. Reddit app. And yeah, definitely comment down below which story did you like the most, and what was your favorite part of each story. And yeah, follow me on Instagram. I actually made other social media platforms that I'm going to be sharing in a community tab, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, follow me on Instagram, and don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see y'all in my next one.